Hey everybody. So still at the park, different portion now. So I want to talk about the heart and how we can have, let's just say, a sick heart or a stony heart, and sometimes just what verses can help us to repair that. So the first one is Psalm 6, and this is, "Have compassion on me, Lord, for I am weak. Heal me, Lord, for my bones are in agony. I am sick at heart. How long, O Lord, will you restore until you restore me? Return, O Lord, and rescue me. Save me because of your unfailing love." So when I think of that particular verse, the first time I read it, and it was about for my bones are in agony, and that first part, it makes it seem like, your body is broken, right? But the next line is about being, for I am sick at heart. So really it's a heart issue. So when we look at it from that perspective, like everything that we're dealing with is a heart issue. And when we look at it, like whatever physical ailments, mental, emotional ailments we're going through, it's all still coming from a sick heart, a hardened heart, a bitter, angry heart. And when we get that and we begin to, understand that God's way is He wants our heart to be soft, He wants our heart to be warm, and He wants us to turn to Him to repair our heart, okay? So let me pick another one here. It is, here we go. Okay. "Let all that I am praise the Lord. May I never forget the good things He does for me. He forgives all my sins and heals all my diseases. He redeems me from death and crowns me with love and tender mercies." And that's Psalm 103 from David. So again, when we think of people in the Bible who really have a heart for God, David is one of those people. You know what I mean? Like King David, he really got who God is. He really got God's heart. He had a heart for God, and he understood that he needed to constantly be in a state of surrender of his heart to God, and that whenever he did something wrong, he felt it. He felt that he did something wrong, and he confessed with his mouth and with his heart that he was off base, that he was not being obedient to God, that he was, deceived by whatever it was that he was distracted by. And King David was willing to constantly, say, "Hey Lord, I made a mistake. Please cover me again. Please turn my heart towards you and give me, the more guidance than what you gave me before." So that's just another reminder to us of, constantly turning to the Lord. Okay, and let me get to another one here. And that one is, okay, here it is. Okay, this is again in Psalms. This is Psalm 147. "He heals the brokenhearted and bandages their wounds." And when I think of, my own journey, and I think of so many times that I was disappointed, and I kept looking to, a man or two men to be that godly man that I was looking for. But I was constantly disappointed. And it's like my brokenheartedness was, yes, it was a result of me trusting the wrong people. And in some cases, my brokenheartedness or separation from God was because I was going my own way and doing things in my ego of what I wanted to do instead of what God wanted me to do, because I was not hearing correctly, not listening correctly, or hearing perfectly clear and still choosing to disobey. So what I'm saying is, we all in our journey are, we are constantly, like up and down and sideways, and, it's like God's trying to beat us into shape, right? But this line again, it says, He heals the brokenhearted and bandages their wounds. And again, when I think of, being a victim of a lot of this, addicts and active addiction, just the fallout of what they do, the fallout of what narcissists do. They do a lot of horrible things to people. And I can look at my own, pile of stuff, and I'm like, wow, like I should feel sorry for me based on what I went through. And then, the compassion kicks in as I start to forgive myself, as I start to have compassion for myself, for my own like wrong thoughts or misunderstandings. And then as I have compassion for myself, then I start to think about addicts in active addiction. And aren't they pretty wounded and brokenhearted, because their addiction constantly separates them from their, physical, biological family because of all the horrible deeds that they do. And, their addiction constantly separates them from their friends, and not even knowing who their friends are, because addicts hang out with other addicts and they're not friends. They're just people they share needles and drugs with. But their whole idea of friends is completely distorted because of their addiction. And, there was a phrase I used to tell my fiance, Eric. I used to say, Eric, you don't even understand what a true friend is, because your thinking is so distorted, because your idea of friendship, of going to a drug den and sharing drugs and needles, that's not a friend. That's someone that wants you to partake in their addiction with them. That's someone that's a crab in the crab pot that's trying to pull you down. That's not a friend. And he would be like, what are you talking about? Those people have my back. And I'm like, really? Do they have your back? Really? Are they paying your rent? Are they, encouraging you to get your life together and to, are they driving you to meetings? Are they taking you to church? Are they praying for you? No, they're sharing needles with you. Like, and it's like, to try to talk sense into somebody who's in active addiction, it's such a difficult feat. It truly is. The patience that's required is paramount, and yet it doesn't matter what I did or didn't do. In this particular case, he was down a path, he was heavily possessed, and the result of his life turned to death. Now, my point about the brokenhearted and my point about people who are wounded, and this definitely speaks to people who are addicts and people who are in active addiction and people who are narcissists that are so far gone, they have zero self, what is it called? They don't have self-confidence. Everything they do is based on phoniness and poserness and manipulation. And the point is, they don't even understand. Again, a narcissist doesn't even understand what true friendship is. And so again, when we think about having a friendship, a relationship with God, this particular group of people, addicts and active addiction and narcissists, they're so far removed. They use people all the time that they don't really know what friendship is. Excuse me. And then when friendship shows up, a genuine friendship shows up, they're so needy to have friendship that they're like taking the takingness of them, the grabbiness, the like needing more and more and more. It's because there have been such a long time of never having a true friend, never having someone to count on, constantly being betrayed by family, friends, etc. And yet it's a making of their own doing because of their addiction. So again, on one hand, my encouragement is, if you know someone who's in active addiction, extend patience to them. And I know it's hard. Believe me, I know it's hard. And at the same time, set boundaries about what you can and can't handle, so that you get a certain amount of time with them and you help them to the certain level. And then you disconnect yourself from that person and that situation and get rebuilt up with other people, other friends, family, get nourished, so that you're not going insane. And then schedule another time when you'll, again, assist the addict in active addiction for, again, a certain period of time. Maybe you just meet them to go, share a meal with them, and you donate your, funds or your generosity to them and buy them a meal or prepare them a meal and just have a conversation with them. I think of all the times that I did that with Eric, and there was a sense of ease in what he was dealing with. But eventually, after those conversations, inevitably, the conversation at some point would have to turn back to the present moment and reality, and having a reality check. And in that reality check, he would be like, I don't want to go back. And I would be like, what do you mean you don't want to go back? And he's like, well, the recovery house, not all those guys are solid. And I would be like, that's where you chose to put yourself, like, you need to deal with your consequences, and I can't rescue you. Like, you've already ruined what was a possibility for you, but you've already ruined those opportunities. Therefore, you have to put yourself in new opportunities and new situations, because, he kept asking me to come back to what was, and I'm like, until you can prove that you are a grounded, stable, mature person that is beyond the grips of addiction, I can't build with you. You have to prove that you are a viable person that is talking the truth. You can't, and he would get mad, he would get angry at himself, he'd get angry at me, and I would be like, I'm not against you, I'm for you, but you have to have a level of stability where you are completely drug-free, that you are, working again and providing an income for yourself, that you are being responsible and, dealing with all of the wreckage that you created, and you're starting to take personal responsibility to clear up the things and the harm that you did to other people. That's called making true amends, not just saying I'm sorry. I'm sorry means nothing. It requires action on your part to repair the damage that you caused other people, and whether that's manual labor or financial labor, but it needs to be corrected. And he would look at me like, well, that's so much. And I'm like, it is much. And I'm like, but you created it. You can't create all those consequences and then just pretend that it doesn't exist and stick your head in the sand. Like, you need to be responsible for the wreckage that you created. You can't dump that wreckage on other people and expect them to clean up your mess. I'm like, that's being an irresponsible child. If you want to be a mature adult, you need to do adult things. So anyway, I hope that this, again, encouragement is that, number one, coming back to this verse, he heals the brokenhearted and bandages their wounds. And the Lord provides opportunities all the time for us to get correct with him. So for example, when I would address a particular issue such as, hey, here's all the bills and all the things that you did of stealing money from me. And you need to come clean and you need to repair this damage that you created against me. And I would say, here's the truth. I need you to acknowledge the truth. And now you need to create an action plan in order to set these things straight. And he would be like, well, that's a lot. And I'm like, well, when you are in addiction and full addiction and you are, quote, out of your mind and out of your body and you're not paying attention to the consequences are still there. You still have to pay the consequences. And, I can't give you a free get out of jail card for everything. I'm sorry, no. And he would be like, well, that's going to take time. And I'd say, okay, well, let's pick one item on the list and let's repair that item. And he thought about everything on the list. And at that time, he had damaged, my mother's house. And, and with the carelessness that he had done, and there were a lot of bills that were, created, and my mom paid out of her pocket to pay for those things. And they were not her responsibility. They were Eric's responsibility. And he looked at the list and he was like, I feel so bad that I hurt your mom. And he's like, I think I want to start there. And, there was a sense in my heart where I'm like, wow, he looked at all those things on that list. He knew that he was a total a-hole. And he picked something on that list to repair and attempt to start to repair the relationship with my mom. And he picked that as his first thing that he was going to pay off. And for that particular thing, he saved up his money and he paid that one thing off. And again, I was very encouraging and I was like, that's awesome. And then we all had, some time together with my mom sitting in a, public restaurant or whatever. And the point is, he was able to feel like, even though he did the wrong, he was able to repair the damage. He was able to create an opportunity to restore that relationship with me and with my mom. And we were giving him that opportunity to do that, right? But again, the problem with addiction is that when someone keeps going back to their comfort level, their comfort friends that are all drug addicts, the drug dens, it's like, I don't know how many of them are. I only know the ones that, you know what I mean? Like, I can't be a police or a manager of his time all the time. He has to make up his own decisions about how he's going to spend his time and is he going to make the right decisions. And the problem is, even though he would make progress and he would repair the damage of one broken relationship and he would pay for the damages for that one particular incident, the problem is that in active addiction, because he was not really in a full surrender, he would go back to the drug dens and the dealers and the friends, and then he would rake up more damage to add to the other list of damage because he felt bad about how bad he was. Do you get what I'm saying? And the whole point is, the only person that can restore us in all that is Jesus. And that's the point I kept trying to explain to him, that it's a surrender. It's a real, like, Lord, I know how horrible I am. I know all this horrible stuff I did. I'm turning it over to you, and I need your help to help me repair everything. And, that takes courage. It also takes discipline and commitment and obedience to not keep going back to whatever the sin and the addiction was to begin with. So I hope that helps, and I hope that it brings some peace of mind to somebody who's out there that's in addiction, and also the women and victims of the addicts in active addiction, that, sisters, you're not alone. I totally understand what you're going through, and you got to protect yourself, and at the same time, sometimes you are the only decent, loyal friend that an addict in active addiction or a narcissist ever has, because they don't even know what true friendship is. And as much of a sacrifice as it is to just have a contact with them, sometimes the kind words and the encouragement that you give that person really does sustain them for like another few weeks, because at least they have one person in their life that they know is solid, that they can, you know, have a conversation with, that they're not going to be judged, but they are going to be encouraged to do the right thing. So anyway, I encourage you in that way. I hope you have a great afternoon, everybody. Bye.